It's not every day that a convicted murderer clears his name and then returns to court to argue that his prosecutor should be prosecuted. But that's what happened recently in a high-profile case in Texas. At the center of this story is a man named Michael Morton. He was once an ordinary citizen with a wife, a child, a job, and no criminal record whatsoever.
I'd started fixing dinner, and the sheriff and a few others showed up at the front door. He was 3, they literally pulled him from my arms, and he's crying with his, outstretched hands, Daddy. He'd already lost his mother, and strangers were taking his father away now.
Let's backtrack a bit. What would you do if your 3-year-old boy was found wandering alone in a quiet Texas neighborhood, his diaper sagging, only for police to follow him home and discover his mother beaten beyond recognition, and then rush to pin the murder on his good father, using a single note to build a motive and lock him away for life?
The last time there were a bunch of cops in the house, it was a really, really bad day. And, they were back.
But here's where this story takes a turn nobody saw coming. The husband didn't do it, and the cops, they knew. They've been hiding the truth for 25 years. No one could have imagined that justice would finally come from the only witness who saw everything that night. That same 3-year-old boy who lost both his parents in one horrific moment. He'd grow up, piece together the fragments of a memory he didn't even know he had, and come back to take down his mother's real killer while saving his own father from a life behind bars.
I had absolutely no idea at the time that Eric had made a very specific statement about witnessing the murder in progress. It is clear to me that conscious decisions were made to conceal evidence and/or ignore the truth.
North Austin, Texas, August 13th, 1986. The sun's barely up when a neighbor spots something that makes his blood run cold. A little boy, maybe 3 years old, wandering alone outside a house on Hazelhurst Drive. The neighbor recognizes him instantly. It's little Eric Morton. The man scoops up the child and walks him back toward the house at 9114 Hazelhurst Drive, calling out for Eric's mother, Christine. Silence.
Everything had been refuted. Everything had been challenged. And the things that hadn't been challenged were just so preposterous that it was almost just like, that's it?
He searches through the house, room by room, Eric clinging to his side. When he reaches the master bedroom, he stops cold. What he sees next will be burned into his memory forever. Sheriff Jim Boutwell from Williamson County arrives at the scene within the hour. Christine's body is hidden under a blanket, covered with a blue suitcase and a wicker basket, like someone tried to make her disappear. When he removes the items, he sees the full horror. Christine Morton is no longer recognizable. She's been beaten to death with a large, blunt object. The attack was savage, personal, brutal. Boutwell and his deputies comb through the house looking for answers. No broken windows, no kicked-in doors, nothing stolen. Christine wasn't sexually assaulted either, which puzzles the investigators, until they spot something sitting on the dresser, a note written by Christine's husband, Michael.
We really do believe in due process. We really do believe that people shouldn't hide evidence that doesn't support their cause when it's their obligation to reveal it.
Later that same day, Michael leaves work to pick up his son at daycare, but Eric never showed up that morning. Confused, Michael calls home to ask Christine what happened. To his complete shock, it's Sheriff Boutwell who answers. The sheriff says nothing about what happened to Christine. He just tells Michael to come home immediately. Michael's world shatters in an instant when Boutwell delivers the news. His wife is dead, murdered. When Michael asks if he can see her, if he can just confirm what he's being told, the sheriff refuses. And the questions that follow, they're not the questions you'd ask someone grieving. They're accusatory, aggressive, like Michael's already been tried and convicted in Boutwell's mind. Michael would later recall that moment with painful clarity. The sheriff showed up, looked around, and decided right then and there, the husband did this. Case closed. September 25th. Not long after Christine's funeral, Michael's trying to hold things together for his son. The doorbell rings. He picks up little Eric and goes to answer. Standing on his doorstep is Sheriff Jim Boutwell, flanked by several deputies. They're here to arrest Michael for the murder of his wife. Michael's stunned. He says something like, "You've got to be kidding me, what is this?" He turns off the stove, grabs Eric tight, and tells Boutwell he needs to call a friend to come get his son. Boutwell says that won't be necessary.
They literally pulled my son out of my arms because he was screaming for me, and the little hand is out and he's being pulled away, and it was one of the worst parts.
One of the deputies pulls 3-year-old Eric from his father's arms. The little boy screams, reaching for his dad as Michael's hands are cuffed behind his back. It's the last time they'll hold each other for over 2 decades.
It just seems hard to understand why prosecutors have to have a different standard to everybody else.
Seeing that justice is done, in many instances, requires very difficult judgments. And to come back behind those prosecutors and second-guess them or sue them would throw a wrench into that system of prosecutors seeking justice.
February 9th, 1987. Less than 6 months after Christine's murder, Michael Morton's trial begins. Michael still believes the truth will set him free. He thinks if you're innocent, if you just tell the truth, you've got nothing to fear. He never seriously thinks they'll convict him.
I didn't do this.
I'm sorry, what?
I did not do this.
The prosecutor is District Attorney Ken Anderson, ambitious, ruthless, known for being aggressive, sarcastic, and dangerously smart. Christine's murder trial is his biggest case yet. If he wins, it'll catapult his career to new heights. And he's prepared to do whatever it takes to win, even if that means breaking every rule in the book.
I have to say there's a certain irony in hearing you say it's the job of a prosecutor to seek justice, right? Because in this particular case, that's exactly what Michael Morton did not get.
With the benefit of hindsight, with the benefit of DNA test results that came available in 2011, you're absolutely correct.
Anderson builds his case around that note found at the crime scene. It mentioned an argument Michael and Christine had the night before about sex. According to Anderson, this is motive. He tells the jury a story. Michael wasn't happy in his marriage. He wanted out. And when Christine refused to have sex with him on his birthday, he flew into a rage and beat her to death.
I didn't really have the opportunity to grieve for her because everything changed so rapidly away from her to me.
So were you a suspect from the very first moment?
Yeah, all the questions were adversarial, accusatory. It became clear to me that the sheriff showed up, looked around, and okay, husband did this.
When Michael takes the stand, he breaks down. The jury watches as Anderson shows him photos of Christine's body. Through tears, Michael tells his side. Christine was alive when he left for work that morning. He clocked in at 6 a.m. According to his timeline, Christine must have been killed after he'd already left the house. He insists the note wasn't written in anger. It was playful banter between husband and wife. Just a silly exchange. But the jury's not buying it anymore, not after Anderson brings his final witness to the stand. Dr. Roberto Bayardo, a medical examiner from Travis County, takes the stand and testifies under oath. After examining Christine's stomach contents, he estimates her time of death at around 1 a.m., 4 hours before Michael says he saw her alive, 4 hours before he says he kissed her goodbye and left for work.
It got sickening after a while to watch him cry at the wrong times, and he seemed only to cry for himself.
The defense is devastated. With scientific proof contradicting Michael's alibi, the jury now sees him as a liar. What they don't know is that Dr. Bayardo couldn't actually determine time of death with that kind of accuracy, but Ken Anderson used him anyway, knowing full well the testimony would seal Michael's fate. February 17th, the trial ends. During closing arguments, Anderson goes for the kill. He fabricates a claim that Michael sexually assaulted Christine after murdering her, despite having zero proof. But it doesn't matter now. No one's left to contradict him. As Anderson describes the scene to the jury, actual tears stream down his face. The performance works.
but also testified in a deposition that he just did not remember most of the details surrounding this case from more than 25 years ago.
The jury doesn't deliberate long. They find Michael Morton guilty of murdering his wife. They sentence him to life in prison. After the verdict, Anderson tells the media that a life sentence is too good for Michael. He should have gotten the death penalty. As Michael's escorted out of the courtroom in handcuffs, he continues to proclaim his innocence, but no one believes him anymore. Ken Anderson just put an innocent man away for life, and Christine's real killer? He's still out there, free, hunting.
It was one of those moments where you almost faint. To hold in my hand a copy of a document that the district attorney at the time had and didn't tell anybody about it on the defense side.
That document would have proved what?
Would have proved that Michael Morton is innocent.
Michael languishes in his cell. Year after year, he files appeals. They're all rejected. His only connection to the outside world comes from visits with his son Eric, which happen once every 6 months under court order. His sister-in-law brings Eric to see him.
My first cell, I could stretch up my arms, and before my elbows locked, I was touching both walls. And you got 2 grown men in there. The food's abysmal. You're never alone. The system controls every part of your life.
It's soul-destroying.
Yeah.
Michael lives for these visits like they're oxygen, but he watches his son slip further and further away with each one. Eric grows distant. He becomes a stranger. The first time Michael hears Eric call his sister-in-law Mom, it startles him, breaks something inside him. As Eric enters puberty and becomes a teenager, the visits start feeling forced, uncomfortable. One day, Michael receives a letter from Eric. His son wants to stop the visits altogether. Since the visits are court-ordered, Eric needs Michael's permission to end them. Michael's heartbroken. He writes back and tells Eric he'll grant his wish, but only if Eric comes to see him one last time and says it to his face. Eric comes. They exchange their greetings. Michael asks if this is really the last visit. Eric won't look him in the eye. He stares at the floor and says yes, it's the last one. Michael looks at his sister-in-law and says something like, "Take care of my son." Then he walks out. Ken Anderson convinced Christine's entire family that Michael killed her. So Eric, raised by Christine's sister, grew up believing his father murdered his mother. Michael knows the only way he'll ever get his son back is to prove his innocence in court. Otherwise, he may never see Eric again.
Sitting in the prosecutor's file and sitting in the sheriff's file, there was a set of documents which, if they had been revealed and the defense had seen them, Michael Morton would have been acquitted.
It's 2004. Michael's been locked up for 17 years when he finally gets a call that changes everything. The Innocence Project, a nonprofit organization that works to overturn wrongful convictions through DNA testing, contacts him. They found an attorney willing to take his case. His name is John Raley. He's a civil attorney who's never handled a criminal case before, but the Innocence Project wants him specifically because of his background in medical malpractice. They think he's the right man for the job. When Raley receives the court documents from Michael's trial, red flags pop up immediately. The note Michael left for Christine strikes him as odd. Why would someone planning to murder their wife leave a note calling attention to an argument? It makes no sense. As he digs deeper, Raley's stunned by what he finds, or rather, by what he doesn't find. There's no real evidence of guilt, no witness, no eyewitness to any violence. Michael had no criminal record. He passed 2 lie detector tests at the time of his arrest. Raley also finds major problems with the medical examiner's testimony. According to the records, Dr. Bayardo didn't get access to Christine's body until days after her murder. Any assessment of exact time of death would have been impossible. Plus, using stomach contents alone to time death. Every piece of medical literature says you can't do that. It should never have been admitted as evidence. Raley thinks to himself, if that was the basis for the jury's guilty verdict, then there's really nothing here. That doesn't automatically mean Michael's innocent, but it means there's reasonable doubt. A lot of it. John Raley's determined to find the truth. His first step, go meet Michael in person. When Raley arrives at the Mark W. Michael unit in East Texas, he's taken to the family room where Michael's waiting. Rayleigh asks him one simple question. What happened on August 12th and 13th, 1986? Take me through those 2 days in as much detail as you can.
It was some of the best time I had had in obviously years and years and years, but we really seemed to connect then.
You feel he believes 100% in your innocence?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Is he going to change his name?
I don't care about that. I don't know the answer. I have my boy back. I don't care about his name.
Michael tells him everything. August 12th was his 32nd birthday, one of the best days of his life. They'd gone through 3 dark years with a sick child, and finally, everything seemed to be turning around. They went to dinner at the city grill. He remembers feeling really good as they were leaving, with Eric walking between them, each parent holding one of his hands. They'd lift him up and swing him like kids do. It felt perfect. This is what life's about, Michael thought. This is happiness. They got home, put Eric to bed, and if you're married and it's your birthday, well, you have certain expectations. Christine fell asleep. Michael laughs at the memory despite the pain. He left that little note. No big deal. This happens in marriages. The next morning at 5 o'clock, the alarm went off. Michael showered, shaved, dressed, and left for work. It was the last time he ever saw Christine alive.
Sheriff Batwell showed up just before dinner time, and I had Eric on my hip when I answered the door. And they pulled him from my arms. He had his little arms outstretched and crying for me while they were handcuffing me. You know, from his 3-year-old perspective, the last time there were a bunch of cops in the house, it was a really, really bad day. And they were back.
Michael tells Rayleigh he never really got the chance to grieve for her. Everything changed so rapidly. It became about him, not about Christine. He describes her laugh, how she'd throw her head back, and you couldn't help but laugh with her. She was smart. She had her head on her shoulders. Everybody liked her. Michael considered himself lucky she even went out with him. Rayleigh's a lawyer who cross-examines people for a living. He knows how to spot when someone's lying. And there's nothing about Michael Morton that doesn't speak from a place of complete integrity and honesty. Rayleigh learns about how the deputies ripped 3-year-old Eric from Michael's arms, how the little boy screamed "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy" while reaching out for him, how this child, who just lost his mother, was now losing his father too. It affects Rayleigh deeply as a father. He thinks about his own children. When he gets home, he tells his wife Kelly about Michael. He says, "My God, he's innocent. We have to get him out." Kelly looks him in the eye and says, "Then do it."
The prosecutor in Michael's case willfully, deliberately withheld evidence.
We believe that there's probable cause to believe that he violated a court order, withheld exculpatory evidence, and violated other laws of the state of Texas.
John Rayleigh wastes no time assembling a team. When they get their hands on the evidence list, they discover something crucial: a blue bandana with blood on it. It was never introduced at trial. According to the 1986 investigation, one of the deputies found a dirty bandana near a construction site about 100 yards from the house. There was no DNA testing available back then, so it was bagged, stored, and ignored. Rayleigh's team naturally wants to run DNA testing on it. If they can extract DNA from the bandana, they might find Christine's blood mixed with her killer's. This could be the key to proving Michael's innocence. But when they show up at the sheriff's department to collect the evidence, they're denied access. Rayleigh's suspicious immediately. Why would they refuse unless the bandana could be a problem for them? John files a motion to force them to turn over the evidence. But by 2005, they still haven't heard back from the district attorney's office. So Rayleigh decides to call him directly. The district attorney of Williamson County at this time is John Bradley. Rayleigh introduces himself and makes his pitch. He says, "Look, all we want is the truth. Nothing bad can come from seeking truth. Either Michael's where he belongs, which is a good thing, or he's innocent, which means there may be a brutal murderer out there killing other people. Don't you want to find out?" Bradley's response: "Doing the test would muddy the waters." Rayleigh's completely confused by this statement. He has no idea what Bradley means. What he doesn't know yet is that John Bradley's mentor is Ken Anderson, the prosecutor who convicted Michael. Anderson's since been appointed district judge and has become one of the most powerful figures in Williamson County. If DNA testing proves Michael's innocent, it would destroy Anderson's reputation. But more importantly, there's something in the prosecutor's files that Anderson desperately wants to keep hidden. John Bradley understands this. He rejects Rayleigh's request. Rayleigh's completely unprepared for the level of political power working against him. There's a strong political machine in Williamson County, and it's determined to keep Michael behind bars.
Doctors, lawyers, policemen, there are all kinds of people who do their job with limited immunity or no immunity. It just seems hard to understand why prosecutors have to have a different standard to everybody else.
Seeing that justice is done in many instances requires very difficult judgments, and to come back behind those prosecutors and second guess them or sue them would throw a wrench into that system of prosecutors seeking justice.
Michael's life hangs in the balance, but Ken Anderson didn't just steal his freedom, he stole his son. When Eric turns 18, Michael receives a letter. Eric's legally changing his name. His aunt and uncle are adopting him. Michael's going to officially and legally lose him.
Around 2001, 2002, I got notice that the most important thing in my life was being taken away from me, and that he was having his name illegally changed, and he was being adopted by my sister-in-law and her husband. Good people, raised him, nothing wrong with them, but you could say it was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Michael's been through hell, his wife's murder, his arrest and conviction, his life sentence, multiple deaths in his family, failed appeals, DNA testing roadblocks. He thought he was tough enough to take all of it, but when he loses Eric, that's what finally breaks him.
It all looks like now all they cared about was protecting reputations, protecting colleagues, and truth and justice.
March 7th, 2008. Over 3 years after filing his motion, John Rayleigh finally gets a hearing. He tells the judge about the blue bandana, how it was never DNA tested, how the state's been blocking their efforts from day one. He hopes the judge will force them to hand over the evidence. What he doesn't know is that John Bradley's already arranged for the judge to reject the request. The battle was lost before it began. Bradley doesn't even bother showing up to the hearing. Rayleigh's furious. He immediately gets in his car and drives nearly 200 miles to Georgetown to confront Bradley at his office. His wife Kelly's seriously concerned that day. She thinks her husband might actually have a stroke. His blood pressure's that elevated. He's that angry. When Rayleigh bursts into Bradley's office, he's still boiling. He does something completely out of character. He says loud enough for everyone in the office to hear, "What are you afraid of? Let me turn it on you, Mr. Bradley. What would you do if the test results exonerated him and identified someone else as the murderer? Because I can handle the truth. Can you, sir?" Then he walks out. Rayleigh later admits there was a time during this fight when they were struggling financially. There was real temptation to focus on work that would actually pay the bills instead of spending so much time on this pro bono case where nothing good seemed to be happening. The temptation was real. A few days later, on a Saturday morning, John Rayleigh gets a call he never expected. It's Michael. He's up for parole again. Rayleigh says that's great, but Michael says there's a catch. He has to confess that he's guilty of murder. Michael's been in prison for 21 years at this point. He has no idea where his son is. Rayleigh wouldn't blame him if he took the deal, but admitting guilt would mean Michael would lose Eric forever. Rayleigh asks, "What are you going to say, Michael?" Michael replies, "All I have left is my actual innocence. If I have to be in prison the rest of my life, I'm not giving that up." When Rayleigh hears this, emotion rushes over him. He makes Michael a promise. "I will never quit. As long as I'm breathing air, I'm trying to get you out of prison."
That you owe your life to them. And I can say that about John. I can point to him and say, "There's the guy. That's the guy who got me out."
The year is 2010. John Raley's been fighting for 6 years. When they finally go before the Third Court of Appeals, Raley argues that the bloody bandana is the be-all and end-all of the case. There's no legal basis to deny testing. None whatsoever. The judges ask the question everybody seems to ask. What if the DNA testing comes out against your client? Raley responds, there's only one way to find out.
He said, even if all this DNA stuff collapses, I'm never going to stop. I'm not going to give up. There's something always to be done. He had literally thrown his life into this. And he didn't know me from the man in the moon. He had never, all he did was read the file that Nina had pushed his way. And when somebody does something like that for you, you're never the same.
While the court deliberates, John Bradley takes to the media to sabotage their efforts. He tells reporters that if he got a promise from Michael Morton that he'd accept criminal responsibility for killing his wife, should the bandana exclude any other mystery killer, he'd consider allowing the testing. Raley argues to the judge, we're paying for this test ourselves. All we want is the truth. The state has fought us every step of the way. We fought too hard and come too far to get to this moment and have it taken away. Finally, after 6 years of fighting, the Court of Appeals rules that they can do DNA testing on the bloody bandana. It'll take months to get the results back. During that time, Raley's office sends a Freedom of Information Act request to gain access to Ken Anderson's files from the original trial. They want to know what else Bradley and Anderson are hiding. The truth turns out to be far more disturbing than Raley ever imagined. When Raley finally gets his hands on Anderson's files, he sees that evidence of Michael's innocence was there all along. It had been concealed from the defense, the court, and the jury. The 1986 investigation showed Michael should never have been the prime suspect. There was a footprint in the mud behind the home. No one ever made a plaster cast. There were strange fingerprints on the sliding glass door. No one ever ran those prints. There was a sighting of a strange man in a green van in the days before the murder, spotted in the same area where the blue bandana was found. The man was seen walking into the woods behind Christine and Michael's house. But the most crucial piece of evidence, the one that's absolutely heartbreaking, involves Eric. On the day of Christine's funeral, little Eric talked to his maternal grandmother, Rita. She wrote down their conversation word for word.
I like to think that my family kind of set a standard that we're not going to act differently because of what happened to my mother.
This information was concealed for 25 years. It was withheld from the defense, the court, and the jury. Ken Anderson knew Michael was innocent. He knew a 3-year-old witness told his grandmother that his daddy wasn't there, and he still sent Michael to prison for life. He let the monster who killed Christine go free to kill again. Christine's mother, Rita, was later told by detectives that the man Eric called the monster was probably just his dad, and Eric didn't recognize him. As for Eric, he was so young when he witnessed his mother's murder that he no longer remembered any of it. June 2011, after 25 years in prison, Michael Morton receives life-changing news. John Raley arrives at the prison with a smile. The bandana contains Christine's DNA and DNA from another man, Mark Allen Norwood, a violent felon with a record spanning 3 states. While investigating cold cases, Raley's team discovers another eerily similar murder. Deborah Jan Baker was killed 2 years after Christine, beaten to death with a blunt object, household items piled over her body. Both women lived within 10 miles of each other, yet investigators never connected the crimes. Norwood's house was 1 street corner from Deborah's home. DNA from the Baker case confirms it. Mark Allen Norwood killed both women. Police arrive at Norwood's Bastrop home. Detective Dave Fugit tells him technology has caught up. They've reached an inevitable crossroad. Norwood asks calmly if they're placing him under arrest. A violent criminal with a 3-decade record is finally arrested for a murder that imprisoned an innocent man for 25 years.
In order to be forgiven, you must forgive. For most of us, That is on a prayer card somewhere, pressed into a book or on a refrigerator.
Yeah.
And we say it to others, usually. What is it to live it?
The difference between just saying forgiveness or giving forgiveness is all the difference in the world. It's like saying, I can fly, or actually flying.
When the truth emerges, District Judge Ken Anderson publicly apologizes, claiming no misconduct occurred. Deborah Baker's daughter, Caitlin, confronts reporters afterward. She says Anderson isn't holding himself accountable. He let Norwood go when he should have caught him. Her mother could be alive.
I don't remember a lot of that. I have no recollection. I didn't have any recollection of all these writs being filed. I didn't know who tried the case with me. I don't recall getting asked a lot of factual questions. You know, I literally had totally forgot the issues in this case.
Anderson becomes the subject of a criminal inquiry for hiding evidence. After a battle led by Raley and the Innocence Project, Anderson is disbarred and removed from the bench. He becomes the first prosecutor in American history, jailed for misconduct resulting in wrongful conviction, 9 days, a $500 fine, and 500 hours of community service. Mark Allen Norwood receives 2 life sentences for both murders. While officials believe he was likely a serial killer, his reign has ended.
It all looks like now all they cared about was protecting reputations, protecting colleagues, and truth and justice. Those things that should have been the most important things, they weren't considered any importance at all.
Michael's release day is chaotic. Cameras, crowds, directions shouted from strangers. But the sun beams down on this beautiful fall day, and Michael tilts his head back, drinking it all in. John Raley arranges a dinner where Michael reunites with his son, Eric. Their shoes are disturbingly similar. Both wear new blue jeans. Their gaits, the way they hold their heads, the jeans are undeniable.
In fact, I planned my life. You know, what am I going to do after this? Where am I going to live? And a very small part of me thought, well, you know, what if? But the bulk of it, I would say most of my thinking, most of my feeling was that this can't possibly happen. What could there be out there that would point to this? When they announced the time, the aggravated life, I collapsed, literally. My butt hit the chair real hard. If the chair hadn't been there, I would probably just fallen on the floor. I was that surprised.
They shake hands, then melt into a hug. They come together as naturally as breathing. Watching this unfold, Raley thinks he's glimpsing heaven.
When I got out of prison, that meant that the underpinnings of everything that my son believed, the motivation for all that he had done, and others around him, had been shown to be false.
Where does that leave the two of you?
In the middle of our process. It was slow going because he had so much to change in his head and in his heart.
Michael reflects that few people can point to someone and say they owe them their life, but he can point to John Raley, the guy who got him out, who didn't know him from anyone. Raley isn't just his attorney, he's Michael's friend, his brother.
I call them kids, they're legally adults, but you have a different world view when you're 22 than when you're 32. And an old con knew me because of all the media attention. And that's about all he knew about me, but he just said, you'll do okay.
Everything's different now. Michael understands suffering and unfairness in ways most people never will. He's good with this world, with what happened, where he's going. No matter what suffering you endure, that experience makes you who you are. He wouldn't be who he is now if he hadn't been broken. Life is good now.